So when we're doing this fraction of an ounce, our banana is, we could see it, 8 over 100. By simplifying, their greatest common factor is 4. So then we get 2 over 25. Apple, we have 25 over 100. Their greatest common factor is 25, so we get 1/4. Strawberry is 10 over 100. Their greatest common factor is 10. We get 1/10. And blueberry is 35 over 100. Their greatest common factor is 5, so we get 7 over 20. Our next slide is to write 0.625 as a fraction, but we always have to do it in simplest form. So, our initial fraction. Who can tell me what the initial fraction is? Miles.
It's 625 over 1,000.
625 over 1,000. How do we know that our initial fraction is 625 over 1,000? How do we know it's over 1,000, Rafi?
625 fit inside 100.
It can't fit inside 100, but also because this is our thousandths place. That's our thousandths place. So as far back as the number goes, that's what place you put it over. If this is tens, hundreds, thousands. So we put it over 1,000. But is that the end? Is that our answer? No, we need to simplify. Like I said, we could either use greatest common factors, or we can be lazy and keep dividing by 25s and stuff, doing all of that, because it's 25. But what we did, what was the answer, Ben?
It was 5/8.
Yes, 5/8. When we simplify, I'm not going to go through and simplify it for us, but the answer is 5/8. Now I want you to do this one. Write 77 200ths as a decimal. Write 77 over 200 as a decimal. Miles, what do we do?
What I did is I multiplied the top and the bottom by 5, because 200 times 5 is 1,000.
So you multiply the top and the bottom times 5. What's 77 times 5?
385.
So we get 385 over 1,000. That's a great idea to do this. This is wonderful. But now what do we do? What do we have to do?
And then you have to write it as a decimal.
Yes.
So it's 0 and 385,000.
Yes. Excellent. The other way we can do it, which is less fun, is long division. If you want to, if you don't remember. If you don't remember long division, you're able to just do the long division. Like, not if you don't remember long division. If you don't remember Miles' way, do long division if you forget. So there's 2 different ways to do this. 2 different ways. He multiplied both sides by 5 because when we get it over a number that's nice like this, over 100, 1,000, 10,000, all of those, you're immediately able to make it into a decimal because we move it over 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Makes sense, right? Let's do the next problem. So, write this down. Write each fraction as a percent. Write each fraction as a percent. This should be pretty easy. So when we get a percent, as everyone said, it's always over 100. So we use our placeholder at the top. How do we get from 20 to 100? Say it together.
Multiply by 5.
Times 5. We do the same to the top. And we get x equals 85. Same thing on this side. How do we go from 50 to 100? Say it together. Times 2. Multiply by 2. So we do the same. Times 2. We get x equals 86%. There's also one more way that we can do this problem. And the problem, and here's the thing. Like I said, if you don't remember, you do long division. And we get whatever we get. Yeah, I did. Because you set it up with 17 and 20. There we go. And then 0. We do the whole thing. We just get 85. It's not even the point. So you can do long division for these as well. So now I want to go to the next problem. Let's look at this. Write the percent as a decimal. Write each percent as a decimal. Write each percent as a decimal. When we write a percent as a decimal, what's the one thing that we do? Who can tell me? Miles. Move the decimal. And we move it to the left because we're moving it away from the percentage sign. Where's the decimal at 3%? Where's the decimal at 3%? Miles again. Where is it? Exactly, at the end. If we don't have a decimal, it's always at the end. So we move it over 2 times because we've got 2 little percentage bubbles. So we move it over 1, 2. What's our answer then for 3%, Fernando? 0.03. Exactly. Again, we move this one over 1, 2. We get 0.0008. We move it over 2. We get 0.15. We move it over 2. We get 2.8. Exactly. That's all we do. When we are going from percent to decimal, we move away from the percentage sign. We move away from the percentage sign. What about this one? I want you to write each of these decimals as a percent. Copy this down in your books. This one should be just as easy. What is the one thing that we do? What's the one thing we do? What's the one thing, Rocco? Decimal 2%. What do we do, Madison? We move it 2 times to the right because we're moving it towards the percentage sign. So we do that again here. 1, 2. We get 0.3%. What about this bottom one? It's a little bit trickier. This bottom one's a little trickier. What do we do, Daniel? We could, but here's even a simpler way. Instead of doing 10 times 5 and adding it to the 1, where we would get 51 over 5 and have to simplify, watch what we can do. This is just going to be equal because we have 10 point, and what is 1/5? It's 10.2. We already know it, so we move it over 1, 2, and that's what we get. So that's how we do it. We can just keep that 10 and put the decimal for the 2. That's how easy it is. I want you guys to fill in this chart. So you have to write them as a decimal and a fraction and a percent. So each of them should be completely filled up. So as a decimal, we move it over twice. 1, 2. We get 0.007. As a fraction, we just put our percent over 100. So we get 0.7 over 100. But we need to move it over. So we end up getting 7 over 1,000. In this one, to make it our percent sign, we move it over 1, 2. We get 62.2%. To make it into a decimal or a fraction, we get 62.2 over 100. Again, we move our decimal. We get 622 over 1,000. We would need to simplify. We would get 311 over 1,000. For this one, fraction is 7/8. Fraction is 7/8. So, what is the decimal for 7/8? Who can tell me the decimal for 7/8? Daniel. So in this case, we can do the long division. 7/8, it goes in 0 times here. 70, it goes in 8 times. And that's how we get 64. We minus it. Now we have 6. And then we have 6, we bring down our 0. It goes in 7 times. That's 56. So then we have 4 left over. We'll have 4 left over. We bring down our next 0. 8 goes into 45 times evenly. So we get 0.875. And as a percent, we just move our decimal over. We get 87.5%. Excellent. Excellent. Now, I want you guys to do this one. Write it down. So to do this, we can multiply our decimal. We make this a decimal. 1, 2. We get 0.2. We multiply that times 625, and we end up getting 125. In this case, for 12, we get 0.12. We multiply that times 625, and we get 75. Exactly. We can do the other ones. We're not going to do them. So all you're doing is multiplying by the decimal. Multiplying by the decimal. Same one we did the last time. We make it a decimal and then we multiply. 0.75 times 260. We get that to be, who has the answer? Daniel? The answer is 195. Here, we set this up. How do we set these problems up? The is over of. What goes on the top of the first one, Ben? 270. What goes on the bottom? Daniel? Bottom of 270. X. On this other side, we get 90 over 100. How do we go from 90 to 270? Ben? Times 3. We do the same to the bottom. X equals what? 300. Excellent. I want you guys to practice this table or this table chart on your own. Practice this table chart on your own for homework.